check the
What up, guys? Welcome to edmtuts.com. Today we're going to learn how to make this sound. So before we get started, I broke the process down into different steps, and I'm going to do a quick overview of each step. Part 1, wavetable selection and warping. Part 2, filtering. Part 3, effects. Part 4, post-processing. Part 5, pitch modulation and additional movement. First thing we're going to do is choose a sine wave for oscillator 1 and digicook for oscillator 2. We're going to turn the wavetable all the way up and the phase random all the way down. Next, we're going to make a basic LFO shape that'll be doing all the modulation. We're going to turn oscillator A warp to FM from B. Turn it up to about 10 o'clock, and then put the LFO to about 12 o'clock. Next, we're going to turn the warp for oscillator B to bend plus, and we're going to turn it up to about there. Lastly, what we're going to do is turn the level from oscillator B all the way down and pitch it up 1 octave. And we should have a sound that sounds like this. Next, what we're going to do is turn on the filter. Go down to multi and pick HN12, which stands for high notch 12. We're going to put LFO1 on the cutoff. If you ever drag an LFO to a parameter and you get it going both ways, you can hold Option, Shift, and click, and that will switch it from bipolar to unipolar. And we're going to modulate it a little bit. Keep the resonance where it's at. Turn the frequency up to about there. And we're going to have the modulation going down just a little bit. And lastly, we're going to turn the drive up to about there. And now our sound should sound like this. Now onto the effects. We're going to add a hyper dimension. Keep the hyper parameters the same, just turn the mix down a little bit. For the dimension, turn the size down and the mix up. And I might turn the size up just a tiny bit. Next, we're going to add a little bit of distortion. Tube distortion will be fine. And we're going to turn the drive up just a little bit. Next is an EQ. We're going to add a peak and a notch. And I'm going to modulate the notch from about here to here. And I'm going to modulate the peak from about here to here. Next, we're going to add some multiband compression. Make sure you click multiband. We're going to drag the ratio down a tiny bit. Turn the release up just a little bit. Turn the gain up. And we're going to mess with the bands, kind of just to our liking. And lastly, we're going to add a low pass filter to cut out some of the super high crunchy frequencies. We're going to go with a low 12, and we're going to modulate it from about there to there. So the low pass filter kind of just tames the high end a little bit. Alright, so next up is the post-processing. So I'm not doing too much, but it is helping out the sound. So I'll go ahead and turn it on and you can hear the difference. So I'm adding some multi-band compression. I'm not going to go over every parameter. I'll put the download link for this rack in the description. I am cutting out the sub to leave room for the actual sub, and then boosting the highs a little bit. And lastly, I'm just adding a little bit of flanging, a tiny bit of saturation, and a tiny bit of compression. Okay, so here's the most important part for getting the type of movement that they get in the actual song. And that is turning the pitch up and down to 6 and -6. Putting a macro on the rate. And what you want to do when you're putting the macro on the rate is have the lowest value be 16th notes, the middle value be 8th notes, and the highest value be quarter notes. Because you're going to be using all three of those if you're remaking the actual drop. Cool, and then what you're going to do is you're going to write out a MIDI note, just one MIDI note, and you're going to add some pitch modulation that will look something like this. So if you change the pitch controls in Serum, you should be able to do this in Ableton by double-clicking the MIDI clip and then clicking on this little E, the envelopes box. And then make sure that you have MIDI control and pitch bend selected, or else you'll be modulating something else. And then you can draw in a curve, draw something like this because it goes up and then slowly back down. And then what you're going to do is you're going to select Serum, hit Control G or Command G to group it, hit this little button. You're going to hit Map, open Serum, wiggle the rate around, and then you're going to hit Map. I already have mine mapped, so I'm not going to do that. And then you're going to hit Map again to select it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to draw in some automation for the rate. So again, for one quarter note, it's all the way down, so it's doing 16th notes, and then it does 8th notes for the rest of it, and then it repeats again, but it finishes with more 16th notes and then a final quarter note. So let's listen to that bass one more time. And there you go. Hopefully you learned something. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment any feedback and any sound design requests.